Everyone. I hope everyone can hear me okay. My name is Julie McPherson, and giving everybody a warm welcome to our webinar today with Alster. We're here with Andres Jara, our CEO, and some speakers that I'm going to be introducing. We're going to go ahead and start on time today. I know sometimes the webinars, they wait a little bit for everybody to join in, but in honor of time, everyone's time, we're going to go ahead and start. Today, we're going to talk about leaning into LegalOps, optimizing results with technology. And first, before we get started, just to have an idea, we're going to do a quick warm-up, for us to kind of know where our panel is here today, where our guests are, and a quick poll we're going to do with a question. Very simple, it's on the screen. Question is, does your company use technology for any of its legal processes? In 30 seconds, more or less, just a yes or no. You can put it on the screen. And there's the poll. Just to have an idea of how many of our lawyers that are joining us today, people involved in legal teams or law firms, just to understand if your company is using legal technology for its legal processes, and Outlook doesn't count, or Gmail. That's good. Fran, you're gonna have to let me know how we are. And there we go. Wow, fantastic. 77%. Does your company use technology for any of its legal processes? 77% yes, and at 23% no. That's super interesting, actually, and perhaps for me even surprising that it was going to be a little bit less yes and a little bit more no. So what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about this issue. One of the important questions that a lot of lawyers and legal teams are pondering today is, how do we respond to changes in the business world in an agile way? It's a professional practice of law today has not been immune to the disruption caused by COVID-19. And it is a fact that legal work dynamics have been impacted by a sudden turn to digital solutions. So interesting to think about how leadership within the legal teams or law firms are incorporating technological solutions as part of their 2021 business strategy. Something just to share that according to a survey that we saw carried out by Ernst & Young, actually in Colombia, August of last year, very interesting, called Reimagining the Legal Function for the Post-COVID Era. Around 40% of the respondents indicated that the reason why they don't implement technology solutions to leverage a more efficient management model in the legal area is basically due to the lack of knowledge of the existing tools, whether or not they can be implemented. And an equal number of respondents had a similar answer in relation to legal innovation projects. There's a bit of a loss in understanding how to go about or what type of legal innovation projects can be developed in their own area. So we're seeing a lack of knowledge of viable solutions and a region that's clearly struggling in implementing legal innovation practices. And without a doubt, these gaps affect how the legal teams are or are not being able to align with their company's future global needs. So today's webinar brings together three great panelists from the world of legal ops, each with unique experiences in their practice and many stories to tell. First of all, let me introduce to you Conor Chopra. Kunoor is co-founder and VP of Legal Services at Elevate. Elevate is a law company providing consulting, technology, and services to law departments and firms. The company's multidisciplinary team of legal professionals, business professionals, and technology experts extend and enable the resources and capabilities of customers worldwide. She's built the legal services offering that are part of Elevate's portfolio of solutions, including litigation, contracts, compliance, and intellectual property. She works closely with customers to understand their enterprise challenges and brings the right suite of technology, services, and consulting to meet their needs. She designs what we call right-sourced solutions, focused on combining people, process, technology, and data in innovative ways that enable customers to modernize and optimize operations. And we asked each of our panelists to give us a bit of personal information. So depending on her mood, Kunoor is sometimes people refer to as fun-or for fun. She loves anything outdoor, hiking, biking, paddleboarding, having brunch with champagne, of course, that was included. Post-pandemic, Kunoor and her wife Diana and their Vizsla dog and 2 cats moved to Palm Springs, California. So she is now enjoying the sunshine there. And from Spain, I'd like to welcome Gloria Sanchez. She accompanies us from Banco Santander. She's the Group VP Head of Legal for Technology and Costs and Legal Transformation for the bank. Her team oversees the legal advice to technology areas with a focus on technology contracts and projects, focused also on digital banking and digital and financial regulation, data and privacy and IP. And she's also in charge of legal advice to the budgeting, procurement, and organizational areas of the group. So likewise, she leads the innovation strategy and the legal tech initiatives. Gloria enjoys learning about different subjects, and among her favorite hobbies is cinema, something interesting to talk about there. And last but not least, we welcome Viviana Martinez from Colombia. She is Head of Innovation and Legal Transformation at Grupo Bancolombia, a lawyer with an entrepreneurial mindset from the Universidad de Rosario in Bogotá, an LLM in International Business Law, Tilburg University, which is in the Netherlands. Also, she has worked as innovation manager at Legis, one of the biggest legal publishers in Colombia, and organizes the Legal Hackers chapter in Bogota. She's the dog lover, collector of all kinds of giraffe figures, and afraid of roller coasters and ghosts at night. So welcome. On behalf of Alster, we welcome all 3 of you. And interesting enough, all 3 really exciting, powerful women in the legal space, in this mes de mujer, as we say here in Chile. And to start this exciting webinar with some questions, Fran, if you could put the first question up onto the board. Here, I'm going to actually pass the first question to Kunoor by opening with this statement. Just sort of a statement to ponder about. What do you think? Innovation as a methodology to achieve the incorporation of technology.
Thank you so much. And very excited to speak with this fabulous panel of leaders, of women leaders. So I find this first question very, very interesting. Often people will think of, innovation kind of big I, right? As something, implementing a new technology or buying a shiny new object. And so, that's what innovation is. And often companies who are looking to innovate and, catch up with what other companies are doing, kind of be at the forefront, they think, hey, wait, I need to go and implement a technology and that's going to solve world hunger, right? Actually, that's not the case. And I believe that, technology is definitely a part of and can be a part of innovation. But we actually, a few years ago, we did a survey and we reviewed the award applications of companies who had won awards for innovation. And we're from organizations such as the ACC Value Champion, the College of Law Practice Management, Corporate Counsel, Best Legal Departments, FT Innovative Lawyers. And if you actually looked at the award applications, they weren't all for implementation of some new and fancy technology. Really, they focused on things such as metrics, alternative fee arrangements, process improvement, diversity, outsourcing, and technology. And so kind of a long way of getting to, kind of comment on the question, which is, technology isn't the main focus of innovation. And when I hear innovation, I think kind of small I, right? I think of how can I innovate to work better and differently? How can I improve the way that I'm doing legal, right? Whether it's better process, data, insights, diversity programs, technology. So again, I think technology should be a part of innovation, but there's a lot more to think about when you're going to implement technology.
Great. Viviana, did you want to add something? I see your hand up.
Yes, I just want to add that usually when someone asks me like, what do you do at work? And I like to say like, the sexy part of the innovation and the sexy part of the legal transformation is more than just brainstorms and talking about artificial intelligence and so on. And it's much more what Kunoor said. And it's like, okay, how do you measure your work? How do you know what people is doing? Like a lot of the strategies that are more than just the fun part, which is good. Like the best thing like to do is those sessions and to have like this environment at work that really help to change the mood of the lawyers, but that the actual work, it goes far more than that.
Yeah. See, agree, totally fantastic. Kunoor, a second question for you before we move on to Gloria. In your experiences with the work that you do with clients, what are their main challenges when adopting technology for the legal teams? And in this webinar, a lot of people are using technology, which is different than what is this process of adoption?
Absolutely. And so if you think about kind of what I shared about how we see innovation, I think that's one of the first important points to think of. But when implementing technology, I think it's really important. I mean, I think first piece is, right, are people even ready to innovate through technology, to implement a technology? What are we communicating to the groups around that? What is going to be the purpose of this technology? How are we going to train people? How are we going to measure that people are actually using the technology and that they're proficient in it, right? So this whole user adoption. So it's one is, are people ready for it? And once they are ready and we actually implement it, how are we going to measure user adoption and that it's actually working? There's an IBM survey that noted that today's workers need 36 days of new skills training to close a skill gap versus 3 to 4 in 2014. That's a lot of time if we're implementing a new technology that we need to spend with people, right? To make sure that they're training and they're actually going to be using it and on a day-to-day. The other is, if we do implement a technology, how are we going to make sure that we're actually making everyone use it? What if people want to kind of revert to the old way or workarounds, right? So how are we going to make sure, is there going to be kind of a grace period, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, where we're going to give them, allow them to work in a couple different ways. And then we're going to say, no, you just have to use this technology. So part of that will be resistance management. Are there people who are resisting this change, right? And that's right. I think any successful implementation is going to come down to change management, right? So how are we making sure we're bringing people along? Cost, right? Not just the technology, but the implementation that's associated with it. One of the biggest things for me is, when implementing technology, and we just did it, for a large Fortune 50 company who was looking at in the beverage space, and they were looking at how do we implement technology, how do we do contracts better? And they thought, oh, let's just get a contract management technology, and that's going to solve everything. But this is a company. This is a company that's been doing contracts by email. I mean, a very successful company, and you'll see this with a lot of large successful companies. They've been doing contracts by emails. They have multiple templates for doing contracts. They have had people at their company who have been there for over 20 years who shouldn't necessarily be negotiating a non-disclosure agreement. So not necessarily the right person for the right task. And so the way that I approach it, or we approach it, is again, looking at right sourcing, right person, right location, right task, using the right technology. And so you really need to take a step back and say, okay, technology, going to what I said initially, is going to be part of the solution, but how do we get there? And so it's really important to look at kind of the processes. Have the processes been optimized, right? With the legal team's engagement in building that. Are we looking at, are we doing things in 10 steps and we should do it in 3? Because if we take those 10 and then we implement a contract management tool and put those 10 inefficient steps into the tool, you're really not much better than when you started. And then who are going to be the people doing the work? Who are the right people, right? Do we want in-house counsel or in-house teams working on this? Should we be outsourcing some of it? Where should we be outsourcing and thinking through that? thinking about whether we should stop doing things, or should we be automating things, right? And that's where the technology will be helpful. So when we worked with this company, it was really important for us at that front end, and we spent, I'd say, maybe 2 months, 8 to 10 weeks, actually working with their stakeholders, understanding their current process, and then mapping out what an optimized process would look like. People, process, technology, and data and metrics. What do we want to do around data and metrics, right? And whether it's to improve how we're doing business or improve how we're working. Once we did that, then we can make the recommendations, including based on now on what current state looks like and what your goals are. This is now the technology or the technologies you should look at implementing that will help you achieve those goals and challenges.
Yeah, no, all extremely valid points too. And as I listen to this long list of to-dos, right, as a head of a legal department, I know for a lot of heads of legal department, it feels a bit daunting because it's different than just buying a Zoom with my credit card, downloading the application and starting to use it. There's a whole host of challenges behind it. And I think the point of change management is something spot on. And I have to think that in this industry, it's a vertical that's very traditional. And that kind of change management, along with the adoption of technology, is something that sounds like a lot of help is needed, right? And so there's cultural issues too there, right? In terms of how in the Northern Hemisphere, maybe we approach those kinds of changes versus in Latin America, there's cultural differences there and too, and how the big companies are approaching or not approaching those kinds of challenges. Very interesting. Thank you. Gloria, I'm gonna move on to you with 2 questions too that we put together today. One of them, the first one being interesting to hear your experience as well. And I'm going to use a word that's many times overused. It has to do with value. What is the value of technology and automation in terms of impact, I think? So just open with that question for you.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Kunoor already mentioned many things related to this. The truth is that I don't see just one sole value or just one sole important point here to mention. I would say there are many of them. So, for example, clearly with technology you can, but just to add something before I start speaking about that, with technology and all the relevant analysis of processes and the cultural change that Kunoor mentioned, because without that you cannot do anything. I agree with her. So with technology and all this process analysis, etc., you can, for example, simplify the way you work. You can, for example, and things that we are doing are providing better services to our clients and internal clients. I mean, the areas that we advise. So mainly, I mean, it is possible that we are providing a similar legal advice, but we try to simplify the process. So somehow the user experience, the way they get to us, the way they receive the outcome, and so on. So this is something you can do. Also, so improving the delivery, simplifying processes. Also, another relevant thing is that when using technology, one of the things that we have learned across these last years is that we produce and we manage a lot of data within legal, but we weren't taking advantage of, real advantage of all those data before. And when using technology, you can start connecting tools one with others and then extract data and put those data in other departments like risk, compliance, legal, cost, finance, and then those data, they have a lot of value for the company. So this is a real value, providing data in-house. But also there are other kinds of data, and Bibiana already mentioned that knowing better what to do, having KPIs and these kind of things, it's an important value for the department, because many things we serve our businesses, we just run behind them to serve them and to provide contracts, negotiations, and intervene in transactions, but we don't know what we do, how many transactions we take care of, how many contracts, what is the time it takes us to attend each business, its requirement. So with these tools, we are able to have more transparency on what we do. And in the end, I think that's the idea that Bibiana and Kunoor were sharing at the beginning. In the end, this is somehow like leading legal as a business somehow, because we were used to just do what the clients were asking, but now we know what things we are doing, what things we can automate. We have some insights in order to better externalize or internalize things. We can prove the value of legal, for example. If you talk about litigations, there are many other examples, or IP protection. You have data that you can put in place to explain your business what you are doing. So, I mean, I see there different questions, but all of them add a lot of value for our role.
Yeah, great, thank you. And second question that I think is probably also relevant for a lot of the people joining us today. The financial sector and the banking sector, right, is characterized by being highly regulated entities. And it's interesting for us to hear from you how they've managed, or how your bank has managed to overcome all these difficulties with incorporating technology. What are the bumps or pain points that you find on the way?
Well, the truth, and Viviana, I guess she will share this view with me, because we both belong to the financial sector. The truth is that we are highly regulated, but we are also great buyers of technology. So this is something we've been doing for years, and this is something we keep on doing every single day. So we have very expert teams. Although, if I have to mention one of our pain points here, and it's not only for the legal department, I mean, it's common for the whole company or the group, is that as we are highly regulated, this comes also for technology. We have a lot of regulation in terms of cybersecurity, operational continuity, outsourcing, and this kind of thing. So you need to pay attention to that. But once you have this, I mean, somehow you take care of that, and providers, they get to know these kind of things, because it's, I mean, it normally happens in the financial sector, but then it's going to another regulated sector. So the thing is that I would say that's one of the important pain points, but the most one, in my opinion, and that's cross-sectorial, it's not only for financial activity, is the cultural change you need to work with. You need to work with your people, because this is something, I mean, this is something, I guess it happens in many companies. When you start a transformation project, or you start taking care of your operations, you start implementing technology, first thing you do is approaching your people and try to get to know what they need, try to analyze your processes, what you do, what you should do better, what you should simplify. And people, they feel sometimes they feel afraid of what's happening. Well, one of the phrases I heard most nearly 4 years ago when I started doing this, when I started in transformation, it was like, Gloria is going to change us all for robots. And I said, okay, it has nothing to do with reality. So, you know, you have many lawyers in the team, and some of them, they think that their idea of reality and the capabilities of technology differs from the truth, so from real capabilities. So you need to work with them, do a lot of training, do a lot of what we do, at least, are innovation contests, exposure to innovative situations, exposure to innovative people. We bring people in, we try to do things to make our people understand that change is important, but also we make them present along the change, along the process of implementing the tools. So they take decisions, they need to understand the process, they need to be the ones who define certain things. So I would say this is the biggest challenge, and that's cross-sectorial.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I guess so.
No, totally agree. And I'll never forget when I first started working with Andres and the group here in Alster. And one of the slides in a PowerPoint presentation that they did when they were working with some clients on consulting projects was how much time the lawyers were actually spending not being lawyers and doing administrative tasks doing everything but the legal work that they were trained to do. And part of the technological adoption is to allow them, right, better efficiency to be able to do that, to be lawyers, which is what they know how to do best. And really, not only that, but the internal stakeholders also finding that as well, that my legal team, right, not very technological savvy. And so it's fully agree with what you've mentioned, and definitely some big challenges. I'm going to thank you, Gloria. I'm going to ask about Bibiana now. Your first question. Interesting for us here in this webinar. Probably most of our people joining us today are from Latin America, and it's interesting from your perspective, from a Latin American perspective, how has the work and implementation of legal technology been in your country, in Colombia?
Thank you. I think in that topic, it's important to see like two perspectives. One, the implementation of legal tech products itself, but also the implementation of technology, which is not legal tech, but still is very valuable, which we were discussing before. So regarding just like the legal tech products, I think around 2015, you can see more offer, like the offer is bigger for legal tech products, not only in Colombia, but in general in Latin America. We did an exercise with legal hackers to map the products, the legal tech products in Colombia, and we found more than 120 products, which can only mean that there is offer, that there is demand, because if the offer is bigger, then there has to be demand. So there has to be an appropriation and a good implementation. I don't know if good or not implementation, but at least a sense of something is going on, and then why not to provide with more tools for the lawyers, no? So with that disruption around 2015, like when I was working at Legis, we did like a lot of market research and things like that, because we were basically selling legal tech products, a research platform, a software for legal management, like matters management, or like claims management, all those kind of things. And I think that's the first thing lawyers are implementing, no? Like either legal departments or law firms, they start to see, okay, first I need to organize my house. I like to say it like that. Like I organize first my house. I have to do hopefully everything in the cloud, or something that allows me to work in a shared collaborative environment. And then with that, I can see what is next. Because if I don't have my data and my team and my knowledge on a cloud, at least, or if it's not a cloud, at least a server that you can share information with more people, then it's more difficult to implement something else, no? Like if you want to move forward to think, okay, then I want to automate something. But how do you choose what to automate if you don't know what your team is working on? What are they spending more time in? So I think that part, it has to go first. And you hear a lot of technology that is very attractive, like AI or something like chatbots, or what Gloria said, that we are replacing lawyers with technology, which we replace some tasks, but not the whole lawyer. But you can only do that right if you have the data to know where to intervene, no? So I think it's been a good journey. And regarding the second part that I said, like, okay, you have the legal tech products, which is really nice to see like a variety of products. The 120 is a lot for just a country. And maybe it's not all super advanced technology, but just to say that you can map 120 products in Spanish that you can use in Colombia, because that's also something important to note, that usually you were working with the legal tech maps from outside, from Europe, from the US, and then you start to check the products, and it's like, okay, but I cannot implement them here because they're either in English or they don't even sell it in my country. So what's going on, and what I can really buy? So that's one point. And the other thing that is just like the general tools.
And actually the last point of your comment there, what can I actually buy, is interesting too, because and that's part of the second question that we have for you, is the challenges when someone from a legal team actually wants to buy, and so they need to do a request, especially in a bank, right? Because and this we see also in other industries where the head of legals doesn't necessarily have a budget for for legal technology. And so there develops a new kind of conversation between the IT people and the legal people. How has that been for you when faced requesting approval from the bank's IT department?
I think there's like some points I would like to go in deep. Like first, you have to compete with the backlog of the products and the services from the bank itself. No, so of course first goes the product and the service, like it does normally in any company. But then you have to really sell your idea and how you're going to get something in return for the efficiency or for like financially matters or something with that tool that you want to implement. So you really have to think and to know what is the return of your investment, like actually like thinking on it like in a case study, like really think and sell the idea, because if you don't have the budget at the beginning, then you first have to fight for the budget, then you have to fight for the position in the backlog of IT. And then when you manage to show that legal is also doing important things, and if you intervene those processes, then there will be efficiency not only for legal department, but for the commercial team and for the product itself, then it gets easier. But I think, and for that, you really need to know the pain points of your team and build those use cases very good, knowing exactly what do you need. Because if you don't know that you are really solving an issue, if you are just implementing something that you think is nice and you think is trendy and you see and you saw it somewhere, maybe it's good, but it won't solve a pain point on the user, and it won't have the same impact than if you are implementing something that is really important. So for example, on what Gloria was saying about automated something in a bank which has like millions of consumers and clients, automating things that are massive, but that are legal requests, but it doesn't need a lawyer behind, that could be a good start. And it's easy to tell, because if you lower the time that you spend answering a question from a client, like you pass from a month to minutes or maybe hours, implementing a workflow or implementing a series of questions and answers, and then the person has the answer like almost immediately, that's a change. So,
and that sounds like, I'm sure, Kunoor, that you're listening to this going, I've worked with this before in a lot of different clients, and I know that Elevate, one of the things that you all do is to help actually that internal sales pitch, probably for the legal team in discussing with their technology team. And just actually an interesting last question that we had for all three of you, because given the study that we quoted earlier, that there's a very large gap in terms of knowledge or really knowing what technology is out there. It's interesting for us to hear from you in your experiences, what you see as the best technology to start with, where the biggest impact is, what kind of technologies are you familiar with, or do you find essential? And obviously the legal teams have a journey, right? When they start with maybe one or two different types of platforms, and then they move into other types of platforms. So just to start with you, Kunoor, if you could give a bit of insight to the people joining us today in terms of technologies that you guys work with, that you know you're familiar with and have found successful in implementing.
Absolutely. And like you said, I mean, there's so many, right? And again, it kind of goes back to really understanding from a customer, what are the overall goals that they're trying to achieve? And then based on that, figuring out what are some of the key technologies to start with. But, often it's kind of at the front end, a lot of companies are struggling with, okay, we just need to figure out how to manage projects or how to manage our matters. So there's a lot of matter management related systems that companies are looking at. Document management systems, that seems to be very popular right now, kind of things like an iManage. Obviously, how do we do legal better, right? If you're looking at litigation or contracts or compliance or IP, there's so many technologies that help you better do or manage or perform some of those tasks, right? And then the goal is to be able to do things more effectively, more efficiently, as well as now with AI, and both Gloria and Bibiana spoke to this, is to then be able to do something with that information. So one is, how do we do things better with technology? But then we have all of this data. And so now we're seeing a lot of technology move towards what are some of the insights and predictions we can get from the data. But we've seen that on the litigation side for a while, right? If you think of e-discovery and document review, people have been applying AI to really be able to review documents better and faster, not purely manual. Now, one thing that we're doing at Elevate is then kind of applying AI across a litigation portfolio and across what customers have paid to see what they've paid, what patterns we're seeing, and where there are opportunities for them to go and sit and talk to outside counsel about how, what type of rates should we have, what type of AFAs should, alternate fee arrangements, or how should they be doing or managing our matters, and is there a better way to do it? But having information now that where you can point AI at a portfolio, you're able to pull a lot of that information and then see patterns. Contract management, huge area of where we've seen a lot of technology growth in the last 12 to 18 months. You have technologies that'll help everything from, okay, we need contract management. Again, how do we make sure we know where our contracts are? Technologies that help with implementation, negotiation and drafting of contracts, right? So you have companies like iCertis, Ironclad, Agiloft, Congo Novartis, a lot of these leading CLM providers. And then there's some companies who are looking at, hey, we want to address a specific solution. And I'll tell you, there's no one technology that does all, which is why you see so much investment in so many technologies around. But another area for technology is in contracts is contract review. So pre-execution, right? Can the technology help redline against a playbook? And that is going to, again, reduce the manual time, but not completely replace what lawyers or contract specialists are doing. So contract review software, which is AI driven, and post-execution, where companies want to get to is to then be able to look at past negotiations and be able to predict, what is the best way to put this new contract together based on what we did in the past and based on what some of the outcomes were. Again, how do we apply insights and look at insights and predictions?
Good, thank you. Viviana, you mentioned something interesting earlier about the number of companies that you guys have mapped there in Colombia and how surprising that is. I ask you too, what kind of technologies are you finding essential either for your legal teams or that are really having impact in Colombia?
I totally agree with Kunoor on the knowledge matter management. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have, is to know what someone else did on something. And usually you start to navigate through all the lawyers, not even the documents, through all the lawyers to find the person who did that. And then from there start to build the history, and that's inefficient. No? So I think just having those matters and documents, either contracts or claims or whatever you are working in, that's one of the biggest things. But also, like, to add something on top of what Kunoor said, I would like to add that nowadays we start to see these no-code tools, like to build, for example, these automated documents or these automated workflows. And you necessarily have to work with the lawyer together with a tool that is simple for them, because it doesn't require the lawyer to know all the technicalities behind the tool. No, what the lawyer is very good at is at doing logic connections and all these decision trees behind that. We are trained for that. Like at law school, we actually have lectures regarding argumentation and how to do a good argument out of what we work. So we are good at that. And if we have a tool that it's easy to connect that knowledge with something automatically, then I think that's a big step as well.
That's very interesting. And I think the issue of contract management and matter management are having a big impact. And when we see the teams actually start to use them, move away from that Excel and digitalize that Excel, put it on a platform. Before I go on to you, Gloria, because I'd like to hear your input too, I just want to remind the attendees to ask any questions through the Q&A button and explain them. Some of these questions are going to be answered at the end of the webinar. We have time specifically for Q&A, but please go ahead and send in anything that you would like to deep dive in or ask any one of our panelists. So Gloria, last word. in terms of technology that you know, can be something specific that you guys have worked with in Santander or that you have found essential for your legal team?
Well, about the essentiality, and it's, I mean, my opinion here, I guess it's very aligned with Kunoor's and Viviana's opinion, because they talk about there's some technologies, I would say they're foundational and or essential for all legal departments. So at least, in my opinion, you need to have some kind of document management system, some kind of matter management and things like that. But then there are others that depend also on your company and the area you work in. So for example, we found very useful to use contract lifecycle tools, which are, I guess, they're essential. There are many of them. They're used for procurement, for providers, but there are others which are specific for banking products. So, and they connect to risk tools and these kind of things. Also, we found very, very useful, and that's something that all legal departments can do. I mean, also depending on their size, but we found very, very useful, like intake forms. Getting to know, getting our clients to put their questions and their requests in a tool that automates the workflow and automates part of what we do. And in the end, we know what we answer, how many questions we receive, what I mentioned at the beginning. So intake forms and workflow automation. We have somehow we have streamlined many processes by using technologies that maybe were not specifically legal tech, but they were technologies that have been there, in the scene for a long time, and they have been used by the business areas. And they are very useful in terms to avoid this huge amount of emails that all of us have, in terms of having automatic alarms and things like that, to have all the process in the same tool, and improving the way we work. There are others which are very specific: IP management, litigation management. Data visualization is something that can be connected to different tools, although many of them already have this visualization. But if you don't have it, you can connect tools, and this is useful as well. And something which is maybe, with all this situation with COVID, we get used, all of us, even the ones that never used these collaborative tools before, we all use them, and they are not legal tech, they are our daily tools. But one thing that I found useful is design thinking whiteboards, because this was something we used to do in my team physically, and now we learn to do that virtual, online, virtually, and it's I love it. And it's and in the end, you don't need to have all the post-its, you have it all in the whiteboard, so it's a good thing.
That's great. No, it's that's something, when the good habits die hard, and from the yellow stickies, we've evolved to something completely digital, and it's just as useful. I wanted to share too, with here at Alster, actually, when we've been the last couple of years developing and implementing technologies for legal teams, and some of the same pain points that we've been able to identify here are also sort of this latent or non-transparent or non-discussed resistance to change, especially in the incorporation of technology. And we also find there's a real fear for having to incorporate more processes. Perhaps they think that it's going to be more processes, which in turn add even more bureaucracy to the workload, until that technology is sort of adopted and people are getting used to it. And we've confirmed that it's a pain for a lot of our clients to try to have to do with fewer lawyers, less budget, and more legal intake. And what we developed here with Kia was basically born as an enterprise legal matter management tool to be able to do a couple of things, looking for and considering all of these things that we've talked about today, is to have a tool here in our market that's capable of centralizing all of these important matters and automate certain relevant processes. And one of the most important outcomes we look for is that our clients have the ability to make decisions, right, through the dashboards with all the data that we've talked about, integrating this tool. There's no one tool that does everything. And as a matter management software, we sort of think about it as the brain, right, the center of information where everything is crossing and then connecting to a CLM or connecting to some kind of, a litigation tool. And as teams become more matter-centric, I think it is very critical for them to have a platform that provides communication and connectivity. And we have found here in Latin America that everyone, that connectivity and communication, both with the internal legal team and with the stakeholders in the company, so that the stakeholders in the company have some kind of visibility with where are their legal matters, where is that NDA that I asked you to do last week, right? So they can have possibility to follow up or have visibility online of their matters as well. And so that also sort of lowers the amount of emails that the lawyers are getting in their inbox saying, where's my NDA? And these are super important, very important when forming a team and being able to achieve that much needed efficiency. But Bibiana, you have your hand up. Go ahead, please, to comment on this.
Just like actually connected with what Gloria and you were saying, and it's like in order to have this implementation easier, it's good to find tools that are already connected with what you use every day. No, so if I want to add a CLM, but then the lawyer has to go outside and go to this platform and upload there and so on, blah, blah. It's easier if I can do it just a button, like an add-in or an AdWord plugin in Word or in your Outlook. And then if you want to really make this easier for the lawyer, you have to make possible to use the less tools outside what they always do, which is email and Word a lot. Like we work a lot on those two tools, and then from there you have to build those other tools that they can use for other things. No.
And Viviana, about what you said, we are, for example, connecting some tools. So, for example, the contract lifecycle we use, we are connecting it to the intake forms. So these kind of connections, apart from moving data from one tool to the other, they help you, because in the intake forms, that way I have the global vision of what my team is doing. So that's great. And Julie, if you let me, I just wanted to add one question,
Please,
which is, when we start with the transformation, one of the things that we did was bringing legal text to do like speech, and so our team what they, the tools they have and things like that. So it was, a new experience for our team. But what we learned the first time, it was that most of the lawyers, they see the tools and they see, the user experience tends to be similar, the look and feel, so they didn't make the difference so easily when they see the tools, in pitches, in 15-minute pitches. So you need to create this culture, this understanding of tools and the understanding of problems and the understanding of solutions. So this is a way to go for legal departments.
Yeah, great, thank you. So I want to go ahead and get some of the questions that some of our people here have asked us, some of the participants have asked us today. One of the questions that somebody has asked is how much money do legal teams, or should legal teams ask for in terms of budget to invest in technology? How do they define that budget, and what's a range?
That really depends on the stage they are, because and from where are you starting with? But I think if I can give an advice on that, it really depends on the example. But I will say really think and analyze the tool before you ask for the budget, so you don't over budget or ask too low. No? So I think really to understand the problem will give you. And then just start from the point that they will lower your your request. So just like to know that usually when there is a cut of budgets, of course, these kind of tools which are not essential for the products are the first that are going to be cut. So just
Right.
to really have the overview of what you want is very important to defend that in case there is a cut of the budget.
Okay, that's good. And another question here, when the concept of somebody, legal ops leader, right, someone in charge of legal operations, what kind of skills do you look for in a person to bring them on your team as a legal operations manager? Do they have to be a lawyer? Does anyone want to take that question?
I can.
You have your microphone in silent. Sorry.
Yeah, Kunoor.
I was going to defer to the in-house, to Gloria and Bibiana, who are in-house. But what we've seen companies look for is even the head of legal ops don't have to be lawyers. Often they're lawyers and or MBAs. So having either background is good. Sometimes they have both, but it's good to obviously have the legal understanding. And I know when they're hiring for individuals on the teams, if you look at like Clock has a really nice kind of wheel of what it is that companies are looking for, right? But you're looking for people with financial background, people who can help with vendor management, technology. And so you're going to look for data analysts, technologists, people with financial backgrounds. So they absolutely don't have to be attorneys. And we've seen many legal ops professionals and leaders who are not. But I mean, Gloria and Bibiana, you would.
Yeah, I think not like maybe the head could be or not a lawyer, but definitely you have to have a multidisciplinary team. Like either if it's the top of the team or not, like that could be a lawyer or not, but then to build a team with more profiles.
Great. I also have a question here that's moving on from workflows and document management. What would be the next priority for a legal operations team? And I understand that obviously this might be different for each team, but in general, workflows, automated workflows and document management for a lot of teams are the first investment. Well, what's sort of the next priority? What are you finding as the next priority for the legal operations team?
I will take this one. Well, if for example, if you go to the models of the clock of Kunoor just mentioned clock, and if you go to the model of clock of legal operations and the things that they categorize as foundational, I didn't recall like the categories, but they were like advanced and like expert. What I learned is that some of them, I mean, there's always a point when you start, but there are things that happen. I mean, you can have some capabilities which are proficient, but then you can have, or you can lack some others which are advanced. So, I mean, it depends a lot on your department and what you need. In my case, specifically, a lot of this year, for example, it will be a lot of consolidation of things that we've been doing. Workflow automation seems not so fancy. Apparently, it is not machine learning. Useful. It is super useful and super efficient for the team. So that's something we'll keep on doing a lot. We'll keep on working with our machine learning laboratory to do things with them. Like we've been doing experiments with contracts, anonymization, data extraction, and that's great. And also, if you are a regulated company, there is a lot of reg tech. So your priority in some cases comes by regulation. I mean, you need to do regulatory reporting, you need to do to comply with privacy things, and this is a priority as well. So,
Kunoor, you have your hand up. Do you want to add something to that?
I'll add to that. I mean, Gloria's right. It depends on what your priorities are, as well as kind of the maturity of your law department in terms of what technologies you should be looking at adopting next. But some of, I think, the key ones, for people who are starting out and trying to think about, hey, what should we be implementing around technology? I would say, where can you get some quick wins, right? You want to show some quick wins so that you'll ask for budget. You want to have some quick wins so that you can then ask for more budget, right, in the future as you need to implement additional technologies. And so I'd say some of the ones that I think are low-hanging fruit, if you have not done anything here, are NDA automation. Automating your NDA process, instant NDA, easy to do. You don't need a full CLM. You can even do it with SharePoint. A second one is e-billing tools. I know we didn't talk about that one, but e-billing, at least in North America, is very significant to to be able to kind of manage the invoices that are coming through, to have visibility into what you are paying, because then there's a lot of opportunities to manage those spend. But e-billing and ADA tools are the ones that I've seen as some low-hanging fruit opportunities.
Okay.
And the
There's a-
e-billing it's important. Like sometimes you used to say, or people used to connect e-billing with law firms just because they bill, no? But you as a law department, you also hire external lawyers for certain things, and having a good management of what you are paying and that kind of things also work.
There's our next question. There's another question that actually talks about that. And it's interesting that the question is, what kind of innovation have you found that has the greatest economic impact for the company, right? We've talked a lot about efficiency, but in terms of the greatest economic impact for the company, for example, a better management of external law firms, which is something you just mentioned, or for example, implementation of workflows. If I have to think in terms of my ROI, anybody want to take that one? Yeah, go ahead.
It's quite similar to what I said before. Document workflow automation is a great one, but also, I mean, it is true that we talk a lot about machine learning, artificial intelligence, and the ones who are the ones as us that are working on the field, we know that it has, for some uses it is more mature than for others, and then we have the language question, which is not minor. So but also even taking that into account, I guess that is the one that will give us more happy moments, because when you extract a lot of information from documents or you automate decisions, the real value it's in escalating that. So that's my bet.
Good. Well, I'm going to close this up with one last question, which is, we talked about just a little bit, but maybe this is a specific situation that might be interesting to hear some experience. But the question is, what is the biggest challenge you have to face while applying your projects? And they give an example. Do the legal team members, there might be legal team members who don't even agree with the use of technology tools. So here I'm interpreting this as the challenge being like real pushback from people who just don't even agree with it, or they're really not really willing to even participate. How do you handle that? I think that's a change management issue, probably cross-functional change management issue. You want to comment on that?
I think, and real quick, I think you have to bring people along. I think change management is key. As I said, it's the key to any successful project. And so get some help around that, kind of have a change management team. But you want to bring people along. So starting to have discussions with them, understanding what their challenges are. What would they like to see changed? How can you help them do their jobs better? Once you start having the conversation and bringing them along, maybe they'll start to see, obviously, the need for the technology and how it can help them. But people are afraid of change, and so you really have to. It sounds really basic, but figuring out a way to bring them along in the process instead of forcing it on them.
Yeah, very true. There's a lot of different ways and methodologies. I know that's out there to do that too. There's a lot of material on that. Bibiana, you want to add a last comment?
Yeah, I wanted to add to Kunoor that maybe, that resistance to change, but if you connect the team since the beginning of the projects, that makes it easier. If they really understand why you are doing that, and if you are changing a process, which is the one of the biggest reasons why they resist, then why are you changing that? And also, like, one thing that they always ask me is like, show me what's the benefit for me. If I use this, for example, a tool to report the time spent on what I do, and I only ask the lawyers to report, but then they're like, okay, I report, but then besides taking my time because I have to go to the tool and report, what's the intake I get from that? And I think just showing something on each project that you start, and showing the people that you are connecting to what they're gonna get from that, it's important.
Yeah. See, I think also just to wrap this up, it's really the changes that have been happening in the legal sector for the last 5 or 6 years. You know, I think for us in the region too, we look at North America, Europe, Australia, there's some fantastic technology, fantastic companies. Elevate is one of them. And thank you, Kunoor, for giving us your time today. There's a lot of learnings. And I think one of the exciting things about our region is the ability to leapfrog, and our learning curve has the ability to be shorter. And the challenge for the head of legal operations, right, is taking advantage of that knowledge that's out there and the technology that's appearing. And Bibiana is super interesting, over 100 technology providers that you guys have found. That's really exciting for the region. And so for us at Alster, I think a big thank you for all 3 of you being with us today. Thank you for joining us. There's some information there about Alster for any of our people that have joined us today. Hopefully it's been useful. It's always a good conversation and experience. I really like listening through others, their experiences is always useful. And the best of luck to the 3 of you, and the best of luck to everyone in our audience in overcoming a lot of the challenges that are out there. Not easy, but if it were easy, not everybody would be doing it, right? Great. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank
Have
you.
a good afternoon. 5 o'clock on the dot, like a lawyer.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.